I'd like to, let's see, we've got quorum, we've got myself, Melinda Daniel, Michael Lavelle, Paul Capello, is that right? I always have problems with that.
Yeah.
You know, if you change it to Smith or something, it would help me. Anyway, so we do have quorum. So I'd like to call this order of the October 20th meeting of the Marvin Planning Board to order at 6:32. Has everybody reviewed the, Miss Kelly, you were there too, I'm sorry. But anyway, has everybody reviewed the proposed agenda? Any comments, changes, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented. Any further discussion, or have we got a second? Someone raise their hand.
So moved.
Michael, all right. Any further discussion? All in favor? You bet. Into it. Thank you. Paul doesn't have a pic. There you go. There's Paul.
Okay.
Yep. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the meeting minutes of the 9/16/20 meeting. Has everybody read these? Any comments on these? I see no comments. I'm going to move it along and I'll make a motion that we adopt them as presented. Have a second? All right, Kelly seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Moving on. Public comment period. Do you have any, Austin?
I can check the sheet, but I doubt it.
Okay.
While we're doing that, I would like to cover a couple technical things. We have a lot of guests today, so if you could please mute yourself when you're not talking, that would definitely help with, making sure there's no noise. And also, we don't have internet at Village Hall, so we're accomplishing a technological miracle that we can even have this meeting right now. So bear with us if we run into any technical difficulties.
We're on my hotspot right now.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm sorry. For those of you who signed in late, yeah, internet's down, and so we're using Austin's business phone hotspot in accomplishing this. If we have any slowdowns, that's the reason.
Don't jinx it now.
Okay. Appears we have no public comments. I'll close the public comment period. New items for discussion. Adoption of the 2021 Planning Board meeting schedule. Open that conversation. Has everybody reviewed that? Blank stares. I'll make a comment that pending, COVID and everything else, I will not be in town on the April 20th meeting, which is not the end of the world. We have a very competent vice chair who can handle this at that point in time. So, I'm not advocating to change that date.
Okay.
I'm just letting everybody know ahead of time.
Does anybody have any problem with the dates?
No problems? My only other comment was, just duly, because of the calendar, our last meeting for next year is December 21st, which is a little late in the year, but, I don't think I'm going to be going anywhere. Is everybody okay with that? I guess we can always change it in the future if there's a problem that arises.
You can always amend it.
Yeah. Okay, hearing no other discussion. Boy, this is moving right along, it's scary. I make a motion that we adopt the 2021 Planning Board meeting schedule as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Melinda. All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Things are not going to keep going this fast, I know. All right, discussion and consideration of sign permit application 20-12, 521 for the Barcroft Monument sign. Rohit.
All right. Our first review for today, the new development Barcroft is going to put up a monument sign, and for our sign ordinance, it needs to be reviewed by the design review board. But this is very straightforward, I think. It's well outside the right of way. It's also outside the site triangle in the agenda packet. I'm not sure how the resolution ended up, but the sign is well into the HOA property outside of the site triangle in the right of way. So, and it well exceeds the dimensions regulations. So that's all I really have to say about it. It looks really nice too. So I would recommend approval and leave it for discussion. There's also the contractor from Castle Rock Hardscapes and Travis Manning, who's the developer. So if either of you want to make a comment, we could ask the planning board to let you have the floor.
Well,
If you
subject to any questions by the board. All right, Michael.
My only question I saw in number 3, you said the subdivision and treeway monuments where located will not require the removal of significant number of healthy trees. Do we know how many trees will be removed?
No trees. We have it staked out in the field, and it's clear from any trees.
Okay, so that we're not removing any trees, so that was okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I saw it was in a pretty, just already cleared place. But just for the sake of, properness, can we get a consensus to allow Travis to have the floor for he answers questions?
Yeah, I guess I should have done it ahead of time, but, I thought maybe that, with subject to no questions. Anyway, so I saw a show of hands to allow Travis to comment.
And Travis, could you state your full name?
Yeah, my name is Travis Mann.
Okay, there you are. Go ahead.
All right. Maybe after the fact. Any other questions by board members? Paul?
I'm trying to understand, there'll only be one sign, and it'll be on, as the picture shows, sort of the left side of the entrance as you're heading out?
As you're heading out, that's correct. It'll be one sign. There'll be a column on the right, potentially, if the room allows. Trying to stay out of tree saves, as Michael mentioned.
Okay, so yeah, I was trying to understand, what is that other fixture, what have you, that's on the right side, that you're facing out of the people?
Yeah, it's a column with our logo. We can build it if the village would like us to. Really impartial. Either way, it's going to look nice.
Okay, I have a recollection that logos weren't okay on the sign. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
When I say logo, I mean the letter B for Barcroft.
Okay, not the developer or the builder, right?
No.
Okay.
So the sign we're seeing, the Barcroft one, where would the B be, Travis? Or the
If we do, I guess this application, as is, includes the column on the right side if you're pulling out of the subdivision. If we did, we don't have to, but if you guys wouldn't mind, we would like to have a B on that column. We're flexible. We appreciate how open and relaxed and easy to get along with, and whatever we need to do. We just want to get our monument going.
I'm not sure where that's showing on the application.
I don't see it.
I don't see it. That's the reason I was,
Then disregard. We'll just do the Barcroft.
Yeah, I don't think that the, like, this sign permit is just for the monument in the
column.
the Barcroft whole sign.
If you go to the page, right,
Yeah, I see I can screen share. I see what you're talking about, but when the sign permit was first submitted, it was just for the Barcroft main monument sign. So if you want, like, that was the understanding, that was the specs that you gave. So if you want that column, I think you're gonna have to submit another sign.
That's fine. We'll just stick with the Barcroft sign.
Yeah, let's just approve what the sign permit.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at as well, go ahead, and I guess,
Yeah.
as you're saying, if you're driving out of the neighborhood, there's an existing column there, is that what you were referring to?
So this is what's in the scope of the permit here. And what you're talking about over here, I didn't even really notice it because it wasn't in the scope of this application.
All right.
Sorry, Travis.
But is it an existing structure, or will it be an existing structure? No, okay. Rohit, just for clarification, if they wanted to put a B on it, is that technically considered a sign, or could that also just be considered decoration?
That would still be a sign.
Okay.
We want to call for a vote?
Yeah, like I said, I'd entertain a motion if someone wants.
So if I may, I just want to comment, and I know that in the past when we were looking at signs, there was some sensitivity to having a sign on only one side of the street opposed to both. If I remember correctly, the reason that was a sensitivity was because the sign was sort of pointing out of Marvin and not into Marvin. I don't know if anyone remembers this from a while back. I don't know if we have a similar issue here. I'm not sure where this is exactly.
I don't, that conversation must have happened before me, but it's, I don't think that's in the ordinance as
No.
it's not even regulated.
Rohit, one last thing. I see that there are lights there. Are the lumens like within whatever ordinance we have for lights for signage?
Like,
They look lanterns, is that what you're referring to, Kelly? Lanterns?
Yeah, like the lanterns. I'm assuming they're light bulbs, or are they gonna be gas fed, which is super fancy?
They'll be like,
Light bulbs, okay.
yes.
So Rohit, is there a wattage that they can't go beyond?
oh, right, I didn't even check that because the wattage that would have to be is like way more than what that kind of bulb looks like you could produce.
Okay. There's just not a separate one for street signs or for signs off the road?
No, it just says, it could be illuminated, but when we were doing our CUPs for the street lighting or the tennis court lighting, like that's the level of lighting that you can produce, and then there's a level of lighting that can't cross the property line, but the property line is so far away that it's almost going to be impossible for this type of light to produce that level of foot candles.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Can I make a motion, John?
Go ahead.
I move to adopt the request for signage as submitted, send it to council with our approval.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Kelly?
Kelly? Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Travis.
Hey, Travis, just as a side note, your dad built our house, built an addition onto our house, and if you're doing as good of work, and I wanted to wait until after this was done, if you do as good of work as he did, I'm sure that he's very proud and it's awesome. So,
Thank
I
you
just
so
wanted to
much for
say,
saying that.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Moving forward, discussion of the zoning text amendment for application 20-12525, various text changes for Marvin Gardens development standards regarding fuel station / convenience store. Rohit?
Okay,
Start.
great. I also put Kathleen's name on this agenda item because I knew that she was going to be talking so that we wouldn't have to give her consensus to talk. Basically, this is the zoning text change request for Marvin Gardens that there was a pre-application meeting for in February or so. They requested 3 things at the time, and the council gave their opinion on it, but it was just a pre-application meeting. They're requesting to increase the hours of the convenience store, the fuel pumps, and to increase the number of fueling stations. And a 4th amendment that they included through the process of designing the store, they realized that only 1 sign was permitted on the building, and it really should allow 2 signs so that 1 sign could be on the front and 1 could be on the street side. But that's the only one I really have an opinion on myself. I think that one was probably an oversight and should be allowed. The other 3, I'm just going to leave up for discussion. And Kathleen is, I think, the coordinator of this text change, but there's also the people from the engineers from 7-Eleven and Kinley Horn are also here.
All right. Let me, Rohit, go back, if you would. There was the meeting with the council back in whenever that was, and it was not. It was a unofficial meeting, I guess, or whatever you.
Yeah, a pre-application meeting.
Pre-application meeting.
Right.
At that time, I know I recall because I sat in on that meeting. I recall the conversation about increasing the fuel positions from 8 to 12. Was there any other discussion for anything at that particular meeting?
The council gave their preliminary opinion on the 3 proposed changes. The two other changes were that they wanted to open earlier. They wanted to change the convenience store and the fueling station's hours from 6 a.m. Up to 4 a.m. And those are 2 separate changes. So those are the other 2 changes that they were requesting at the time. And the council gave their opinion at the time. They weren't really warm to the idea of the hours, but they were fine with the idea of increasing fueling stations. And at the end, they did say that they would consider planning board's discussion and that their recommendation when it does come to council.
Yeah, and I understand that was not, cast in stone. That was just a pre-application meeting, trying to get the feeling. But I was just trying to get a refreshment of my memory, which is not very good anymore. And like I said, I remember the fuel station, or fuel locations, but that was all I remembered. All right. I'll go on and open, the conversation, I guess. Specifically addressing the time changes. I made a point to ride around today and check the hours of operation of everything else on that intersection. And Publix is advertising they will be open from 7 a.m. until, I can't remember now.
Rohit, do you remember?
I didn't check. I might have a picture of it though.
Anyway, but the biggest thing was 7 a.m. and the CVS on the other corner, and Publix is only business in the village of Marvin. But the CVS is 9 a.m. and the coffee shop on the other corner, developed corner, is 7:30 in the morning. And, you know, and the ordinance as approved is already earlier than any of those, 6 a.m. I personally don't, of course, I don't get up that early anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. I have a hard time moving earlier than 6 a.m. personally, especially since there's no other activity at that intersection. But I'm open for conversation. I don't, as you all know, I don't lead this meeting. I'm just sort of a facilitator. Michael?
Can I have permission to consensus for us to address some of the points? Is that appropriate?
You're on the agenda already. Let's get some of the other comments, and then you'll see everybody, and you can address it at that time. How's that sound?
Very good, thank you.
I'm not trying to shortchange you, but no need in having to answer it 3 or 4 different times. Michael?
John, I have a flyer for the grand opening for Publix just to help you out with the timing. Their store hours are 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
That's what I was thinking, but 9.
Yes, they're going to close at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. So, they're already allowed 6 a.m. to midnight. Any other comments from anybody? Or opinions?
I have one more. My question would be, they're asking to go from 8 to 12, and I think council was okay with it going from 8 to 12. They were questioning whether the 4 a.m. was necessary. My question is, do we have their fueling positions there? I guess each pump has 2. Are we adding more pumps if we allow 12 fueling positions, or is it just a new pump with 4? I mean, can somebody explain the difference? What was approved at 8 and how many fueling pumps there were compared to 12?
Kathleen?
Yes, so the difference between pumps and fueling positions gets to be a little bit confusing. So it was 4 pumps with 8 positions, and we're requesting moving that to 6 pumps with 12 positions. And as with the hours, the industry standard is to do 12 positions. And it also provides, there's really not a lot of other gas stations in the marketplace. So we're assuming this is going to be a reasonably busy location. And because it's going to service and provide, and that's kind of part of it, it's the dual reason for the hours as well, early morning hours, is for service workers such as lawn care people who are like to come in the mornings with their equipment trailers and, fuel up their lawn mowers, etc., that provide lawn service. Another is the larger vehicles that we're seeing now with all these online deliveries. We've got Amazon Prime trucks and things like that. So the reason for the hours is to service those folks as well as service workers, but also if you're pulling into a gas station and there's a larger vehicle in front of you, they usually take up 2 positions. And this allows for more fluidity of the, and access to the pumps. If that makes sense.
Sure, it does. But if the industry standard is 12 positions, why was it designed as 8 originally?
I think that was part of the original that was done by the Publix in the master plan piece before they secured who was actually going to have that, do the operations on the out parcel.
My only question, and I'm fine with that, but this is not, the location of Newtown and Providence is not an off-highway position like at 485 and, Providence, where people would be getting off to come down there. And I don't know if the gas stations up at there, what time they're open, that perhaps they could fill up there before coming all the way down south. Because most of these people would be coming from the highway, imagine the Amazons and the landscapers and things like that. So, they would have access to, a highway position where the hours are probably much different than more of a neighborhood location that this is. Is that something that's plausible, or?
It is plausible. I guess the question for you all is that do you want to capture that some of that sales tax revenue that right now is going to other places in those other positions? So that's a consideration for you all to think about. But there's not a lot of other choices, and once you get down this far south into this area, and it's also folks like teachers who may want to grab a cup of coffee and get their gas before they have to report to school, healthcare workers, folks that live in Waxhaw, Marvin, in and around the community, that actually this may be their closest, more convenient stop on the way out versus or coming back. If that makes sense.
It does.
Any other questions?
I
Comments?
have a question about what the public's hours may shift to in a post-COVID world. Does anybody remember what the regular public's hours are before we all started being at home all the time?
I imagine that those hours are dictated by the ordinance as well, wouldn't it be, Rohit? If the convenience store hours are mandated, wouldn't Publix hours be mandated?
I can jump in real quick here, gentlemen, because I was with Rohit at the ribbon cutting ceremony at Publix this afternoon.
Oh, okay, this is.
There are hours. There are hours.
Yeah, okay. It took me a minute
Yeah.
to see that you were speaking. All right, go ahead.
Their hours are going to be, they did have, Melinda, whatever, they did have the pre-COVID hours, and then they went to COVID hours. And now they said that since June, they've gone back to normal hours. So that at that particular location, it's going to be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. If that helps, Dana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was mostly curious for the sake of saying, okay, well, if something, right, like some of the, and I'm sorry I wasn't here when this got adopted into being allowed in Marvin, but I was thinking, if some of the grocery stores were 24 hours and now they're not 24 hours, and I was thinking, it might make more sense. But otherwise, I don't know why earlier than 6 would be necessary then, if nothing. That's my personal state on that.
I think there's a couple of questions here that actually does ring a bell. Thanks for Marvin mentioned. But I have the screen share here. Sorry, we're starting to talk over each other. Let me just say that I have the screen share here for the Marvin Gardens development standards, and it does say that all commercial uses no earlier than 6, no later than midnight, with all exceptions, and that's where they're trying to add the exception. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, one other comment, sorry, is that often if they're opening at 7, they need to be able to have the workers at the 7-Eleven to be able to go in there and fix the coffee and prepare and get things ready as well. So I guess the question is, when can they get started with their day so that they can be ready and open at 7 o'clock?
Well, I think
Or
that
6
yeah.
a.m.
Yeah. Well, it just says hours of operation. That doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be, if you go to the Publix, as an example, most supermarkets in these days are, they have the nighttime stocking shift, which I don't think those count towards hours of operation, would they, Rohit?
No, that doesn't count towards hours of operation.
Yeah, so if they go in at, if the hours are allowed to open at 6 and they go in at 5 to start making coffee and putting the donuts out and, mop the floor, etc., that's still allowable as long as they don't unlock the doors.
I'd just like to make a comment. Is there actually a question?
Sure.
Is the hour restrictions primarily for like a gas station or something with a lot of lighting? I've got lighting today. Is it just inconvenience or disturbing like nearby homes? Because really the only nearby properties are the ones behind Publix.
Well, go back and where when Rohit pulled up the screen share, it was all businesses, their hours could not be but 6 a.m. to midnight in the entire development, with the exception of a 24-hour ATM machine, it said, I think.
Right, we just don't really have gas stations in Marvin, so it seems to me like really the only people this will be servicing are people coming from further south going into town. And there really isn't a gas station between them and I think the next closest gas station is like down near Weddington. I don't know how many miles away that is. So, I mean, really it's like, it's about, we want to capture additional tax dollars from people outside of our area or not.
Right, but this, even, Marvin Gardens is quite a change for Marvin anyway, for commercial development. And I'm with Melinda, and I guess Paul's the only one who might have been around when it was originally approved. I can imagine there was an awful lot of conversation at that point in time about the development period, much less with how it looks and hours of operations and everything.
I'm not sure the tax dollars is as important as is the disturbance that may occur from 4 to 6. My question would be, if we're talking about tax dollars, I mean, how much additional revenue do they project from 4 to 6? Over the entire year.
Is there, does anyone know, like, 4 to 6 a.m. about crime, or what is the likelihood of, I mean, we're just talking sleepy people going to work, or are there spikes in crime during that time? Is it a lot of traffic? Is there a traffic study done on what it looks like on Providence Road at that time?
I'm not up at 4.
I'm
just looking, some of the team is sharing, the Shell on Charlotte Highway opens at 5 in the morning and the Quick Trip is 24 hours.
So there are options.
Okay, that's Charlotte, that's 521 you're talking about? Yeah.
There's a Shell station.
Yeah, back
Newtown Road in South Carolina.
Yeah.
It's like just a couple miles.
But again, I guess when they did the market study, they assumed that there may be some additional, I mean, if there could be some give on the hours at 6 a.m., whether it's 5 or 4, we greatly appreciate it, but understand your thoughts.
Yeah. And no matter what we recommend, it's still only a recommendation to council.
Right.
But we owe it to the council to have adequately discussed, and we're only on, we've talked about there really are 3 items, I guess, on this, I believe, right? The hours,
right,
and the fueling positions, and the signage. And I think per their pre-application meeting, that the council was okay with entertaining the increase in fueling positions. And evidently they were not real keen on the hours of operation. I don't remember, maybe everybody missed the signage problem, I don't know.
If we could ask one more question on the, so we're having, if we agree there's 2 additional pumps, does that affect the site plan with parking, or from the previous site plan to this plan, is adding additional pumps, how does that impact the parking and what the ratios are necessary for that?
The existing zoning did not have a site plan for these out parcels, so there's no really before to compare to. But they did submit a site plan, and I'm gonna pull it up.
I see the site plan. If there's a problem with the site, there's no problem with the site plan that they submit as far as parking and ratios and.
Right. I believe it's just adding the 2 pumps under the canopy that's shown on the site plan.
The plan, there's 2 site plans attached, which, there's one that shows,
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. Yeah, the one, it was the original Publix plan, just to show you the context of where this location is, but this particular site plan shows the 12 underneath the same size canopy.
okay, all right. And then, and I've got to ask a procedural thing, the quote, I'll call it the new site plan, shows a triangular building versus a rectangular building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not picking at gnats or anything, but I have to ask Rohit a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to address that?
I don't think so, because like the original site plan, this stuff here is not meant for a zoning regulation. It's really just to show that these are the possibilities for this these out parcels. Like they said, oops.
You almost had it.
Like they just need to show that out parcel 1 is the one that can have a gas station or a restaurant, and then out parcel 2 can have the bank or a coffee shop. Etc. It was really only the Publix that had the site plan with the exact location of the building, as you see down here, set out.
All right, like I said, I'm not, don't have a problem with it, as long as we're not, just glossing over something that we should have asked about.
What I see, John, is I think that it says 8 fueling positions max and 3,500 square feet max building, and the building comes in at 3,465.
Yeah.
So I don't think the building qualifies for discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's just moving from 8 to 12, if I'm reading that right, Rohit, correct?
Yeah.
But the canopy size stays the same, so it doesn't change the overall and the scale of the canopy to the building.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing it, I just want to make sure that we didn't step on something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the signage, I do recall going back, my memory and looking at it when they made their informational presentation to the council. They actually referenced the convenience store at Blakeney, and it does have signage on both sides. They had the photograph of that convenience store building.
Right, and unfortunately, we are not getting a panel on the monument sign. So the sign that says Publix that names all the tenants on the monument, we are not on that. So again, for that reason, we're asking to be able to have the sign on both sides.
Yeah.
And on the fuel.
You know how many people they saved for monument signs on their panels?
There's like 4 slots, but it's very small compared to the number of actual tenant spaces there are.
So 4 slots, and you're the first one open, and you're not getting a sign?
No. They generally do those panels based upon the size and, of the space. So I would expect they're reserving it for the restaurants or other larger tenants.
And also, I know it wasn't a part of our lease agreement, so I don't know if it maybe had been an afterthought or an assumption that we would get it, but I know it's not in the lease agreement.
Somebody erred.
Yeah.
Rohit, as far as the signage goes, additional signage it meets the ordinances, there's no problem there?
This is a conditional district, so whatever you decide to allow is the ordinance.
Okay.
But size-wise, other than twice as many signs, the size is the same as on the original approval?
Well, that's the thing. They are asking for an additional sign.
Yeah, but
so we can make the rules for that sign, and again, that wouldn't be the ordinance.
But I mean,
But then you could also use the quick trip, the Circle K that's in Blaveny and say, okay, you're allowed to do exactly this. And then we don't have to worry about the details.
Okay, so, I mean, despite the fact that we're talking about 2 versus 1, is each individual sign the same size as was originally approved? No. The sign on the back would be a little bit different dimensions. It looks to be more blockier, and the sign in the front side would be longer. And they probably have different depths too.
Is the sign packet, Rohit? Is the sign in the packet you sent out?
The sign that they're requesting is not in the packet, but it is in the it's not in their application, but it is in the design review, design standards for Marvin Gardens. I have it shared on the share screen right now.
Okay.
Where it says they're allowed a digital sign, the picture actually includes the other sign that they're requesting. So that's kind of why I'm heavily leaning on the side of this oversight that they weren't allowed to actually put that other sign where it says the number of signs that are allowed.
Yeah, my question, or I guess Michael's and mine both, is, the square footage, whether it be 1 or 2, I mean, for each sign, is it, and I'm trying to read, it says maximum area 10, is that 10 square feet?
It should say square foot there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's 10, so
yeah.
Each one of them would be 10 square feet, or that's the...
Yeah, it could be.
But
what are you requesting exactly? Let's ask that.
10 feet's not very big.
Yeah. So you're just, right at the moment, they're just asking to have 2 locations, but they haven't submitted a sign, what they want to put there, is that right?
Well, I have a copy of the brand book. Rohi, would it be helpful if I sent that over to you so everybody could see it? Or no?
Yeah, we could do that, but I don't have a really convenient computer setup right now, so I think the better idea would be if you could just pull it up on your computer and I can give you sharing for
Yeah, this is just because on our team we're handling the signage issue, so.
Well, Jessica, what size is the sign?
So the Pricer cabinet is 3 foot tall by 6 foot long. And then we have just the regular 7-Eleven logo right in front of it, and it is 3 by 3. So it's going to be 3 foot tall by 9 foot long.
3 foot tall by
9 feet? So 27 square feet total.
Mm-hmm.
And
if it helps, our normal sign allowance is 40 square feet.
Okay, what's the 10 square feet we saw on that previous?
That was for the sign for this gas station sign, convenience store sign. Let's see. The digital, the gas station price sign, that's what it was.
Yeah, this accompanies the digital sign with the price.
When we went through the signs, we went through them in great detail. Generally speaking, didn't want to have a lot of street front signage. So that's why this provision was put in place, I think, which was, okay, people understood with a gas station, maybe you need a a small sign to put up the price, and that was why that example was put in the original picture, I think. But
I think you're right.
the idea was we did not want to have street front signage. We wanted to have one sort of major sign that let people know what's in the mall, and that was pretty much it. Because pretty much every retail facility would want a sign on the street if possible, and we were trying to limit that.
And am I hearing this right, that the sign that we're talking about is 3 times or 2.7 times the size of what's approved in the 10 square feet? Is that what I'm hearing?
Is the 3x9 sign the sign you're wanting to put on the street side, or is it okay.
We have it on the rear of the building right there.
Can everyone see Jessica's screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So Jessica, the 7-Eleven is the 3x9.
Is the 7-Eleven by itself is just 3x3. The Pricer cabinet is 3 foot tall by 6 feet long.
So 18, okay. So that's the rear,
Oh, okay.
that's the rear of the building that you're asking for. The 7-Eleven's already approved.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just on the rear of the building, you have the 7-Eleven in the side and the amount of gas that the gas is.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right, and the gas itself is already allowed at, what did you say it was, 3x6?
Yes.
Right. And the price, yeah, and that's required by law, the pricer keeps.
Yeah. I want them to display the price. Yes, absolutely.
We also have to keep in mind that with weights and measures, and inspections, with that department and selling fuel, you also have to have not only your fuel prices, but who is selling it.
Gotcha. No, I like it. I think this is a very reasonable signage request. I want to see the price. I like the sign on the front of the building, and the rear of the building is, is adequate and does what it's supposed to do, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
I think so, and I think it gives us the best visibility at the rear of that main road, because everything else is facing interior to the Publix. And we do not have a freestanding sign as you would normally see on a particular property. So that rear sign takes that place of a ground sign.
So are we talking about if this is looks like a home plate, we're talking about the side facing Newtown Road, correct? Since it's a triangle?
No, I'll have to look at the site plan. Hold on.
Yes.
Rohit, can I
Right here, right here.
Rohit,
And
there are other out parcel properties, right? And there will be other.
There are 3 others, but we haven't had any proposals or any contact with anyone.
No, understood.
Right,
But do each of those also have sort of the one sign per location limit on them?
Let me check.
Yeah, and because I'm going back to down what you said earlier about this maybe being an oversight. I don't think it was an oversight. I think we intentionally did not want to have street front signs, but understood the gas station maybe having the price displayed wouldn't have been unreasonable, and that's why that was put in the way it was. But as a practical matter, I don't think we were looking for having each of these individual retail establishments having a street front sign in addition to one on the inside, in addition to having one on the main post as they come in the mall, so to speak.
Yes, and I think there was a caveat just for the fuel signs, if I remember reading the code correctly. And that's the reason that we thought that would be something okay to ask for, because like you said, it was broken down and then it had a little caveat for fuel stations.
And Jessica, you're saying that it's the law that if you display fuel pricing signs, there has to be a sign next to it displaying who is actually selling it, what circle code.
Yeah, it has to be the type of gas, even if it's unbranded, it needs to say unbranded, so the public is aware of the type of fuel that they're receiving.
So the 3x3 7-Eleven sign is, are you saying that's kind of a requirement, or is there another way to display it?
I mean, there is other ways to display it. We kind of kept it the same size as the Pricer cabinet to make it look like it was all one sign.
So is that really the issue, guys? Is that's 3x3 sign that we're talking about? Because the Pricer sign was already agreed upon back in the day.
No, I don't price sign. I think the 7-Eleven on the front of the building was agreed upon. Jessica, if you could go back to the site plan, I just want to make sure where you started, right? One more, right there. Can you point to which back? I mean, I guess there's two backs there. Which back would the sign go on?
Right here where you see
Okay.
B1, B2.
Okay, and there's a lot of, Jessica, I mean, there's a lot of trees behind there.
We also know that because we did have somebody drive by there.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
we get that.
is it gonna be visible at all with all those trees? Why not put it on the side where there's no trees?
Well, it's hard to tell with new construction exactly which side that would be. Let me go back to the building.
Well, the other
So you're talking
side,
about maybe.
No, the other side.
is the other,
I think there's a
Okay.
bench
Out
there
parcel.
too.
There's what?
that's another
I just thought-
out next to it. So it wouldn't be visible on the street if you put it on that side, because it would be facing the other adjacent
Yeah.
parts.
Okay, good answer.
Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, as long as you guys obviously know that you're putting a sign where there's a ton of trees.
Well,
I
we
guess,
have to advertise that we still gas. If those gas prices have to be somewhere.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it, I just wanted to, if you're putting a sign, make best use of it, but. if
Right. I mean, I'm open for suggestions. This doesn't have to be set in stone. If we decide collectively that, we agree it would be best a different place, that's totally fine.
I mean, the only thing, Jessica and Kathleen, is if there's another out parcel there, at least those people who are, visiting that business, whatever that establishment be, will be able to see it. Where,
Well, yeah, but the other thing is, instead of on the back, you put it over on the side where see where the triangle kind of has a little bit of a turn? Right there.
oh, there, that's what you think?
That corner of,
I think-
you come in.
I think you still have a land, if you go to the site plan where it shows the square footage of the
All
building.
of this is like forest,
Yeah.
bunch of
exactly.
trees.
Exactly, that's what, I'd rather, I mean, but it's totally called, but I'd rather have it facing the out parcel, or at least people can see it. I don't think anybody's gonna see it with all the landscaping buffers that are put in place there. At least you have the people that are visiting that other out parcel to see it. That's just,
Well, do they have the potential to build right in that area and block it completely? Is that an option if somebody would do that?
we haven't seen who's going there at the site plan.
Well, yeah, but they
It's hard to
also
do
don't
that
have any,
too.
they don't have, well,
There's no one to the left except there's that one building in front of the pond, but that's it. I
yeah.
think that space to the left of the plot is open.
Of course, there's not been a site plan, submitted for out parcel 2. And I'm betting that they're gonna have to have some street trees there as well, won't they? Rohit, likely?
They may not have to put street trees because all the trees in the site were mitigated by Publix in their landscape plan. But I don't know, I don't even know if this is actually part of the conversation that we're supposed to be having right now.
Yeah.
Well,
It's fair to say.
we're just having
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah,
So Rohit, if,
Brian, can I
if
back
we
up? Can I just back up a little bit? Because again, I have a bad memory, but there are certain things that are indelibly printed in my brain. And the amount of time we spend talking about signs.
Yeah, I have the answer to the question that was asked before. Can I share my screen? Let's see if I can, I'll give the sharing back to you.
No.
Yeah, it's here. So in envelope B, which is the envelope with the out parcels, it says 2 wall signs are permitted, 1 projecting sign and 1 window sign. except for the convenience store. And then in the convenience store, it says one wall sign, one window sign, one digital. So it does allow for 2 wall signs for all of the other types of buildings.
All other types, or this one included? That's so.
No, 2 wall signs are permitted in this category that says except for the convenience store.
So this
And then in the convenience store, it says 1 wall sign is permitted.
Right.
says 1 wall sign, 1 window sign, 1 digital sign placed on the rear of the principal building facing the right of way to display the price of fuel. Isn't that what they're
Right.
doing?
Yeah.
Well, that's where they also want to add 1 more wall sign above the digital, or
Well-
next to it.
Well, they say that they have to because they have to say who's selling it.
Right, and then we have to allow them that.
Okay.
So, but let me ask you though, again, trying to understand how this all fits together. In the materials that we have sent to us today, there's all the standards. And if you go down to page 32, you see section 8, sign standards. And then I think if you go to sort of page 34, 35, you see sort of images of what a sign is supposed to look like with backlighting and that.
Mm-hmm.
How does what we're seeing now fit into this section 8? And if it doesn't,
Right.
why is that, and et cetera?
Yeah, so on page 45, the picture of the digital sign actually includes another wall sign. That's where it fits in. The digital sign specs doesn't include the wall sign, but the picture does. And that's why it's, I don't know, confusing.
Well, again, I think that was intentional. I think it was acknowledged that it's okay to advertise the price of the fuel on the front of the building, but wall signs in general need to fit within what you see above in page 34 and 32, et cetera. So I'm looking at the signs that I'm seeing briefly here fly across the screen, and they don't look like they fit what I'm seeing on pages 32, 33, 34. I mean, for example, just go back to the first picture you showed about the big 7-Eleven sign on the front of the building. That looks like block lettering. Again, I'm trying to see on my screen through your screen. It's pretty hard for me to see that, but I'm struggling to see how that looks like what we're seeing on page 32, 33, 34.
You mean, are you trying to say that the front side signage might not be allowed?
I'm asking, right? I'm reacting now because I'm seeing a number of different signs, and I know we're supposed to be talking about this additional request, but I'm even asking, backing up entirely, is how does that sign on the front fit in here?
I think it falls under this one, dimension for wall sign, secondary tenant, 32 square feet. Didn't you say it was 3 by 9 or something like that?
That was the rear
What's this, how big is the 7-Eleven sign, Jessica?
on the front of the building.
Yeah.
It is 3 foot by 16 foot 7. Those
Okay.
are halo illuminated channel letters.
Okay, so that would be one of these signs, but it still has to be under 32 square feet.
Boy.
And then this is simply just to add the 7-Eleven, that who's selling the fuel to accompany the digital sign, the price. That's what we're getting to on the back.
Right. We can talk about having, having you reduce the sign in the front. That's, I mean, normally when someone proposes something that's not compliant, you just have to make it compliant. And that part's fine. But in this part, there's no way to, make it compliant when you have to put a sign on the back, and that's why we're here asking for a text amendment.
Right.
So currently they're 48, and you're saying they would have to reduce it to 32?
The front one that they said was 3 by 16.
Wow.
They would have to reduce it to 32 square foot total to be compliant with this ordinance. Unless they ask for another text amendment, of course, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
So what are we here to discuss then?
To allow the wall sign in the back.
And
So by doing this, we've uncovered that their front sign doesn't fit within the ordinance?
Yeah, but I haven't done a review. In fact, I haven't even seen what Jessica put on the screen until just now.
Yeah, in fact, that's why
Okay.
I'm reacting, because I don't know that I've seen it, that's all, so it's okay.
And I'm sorry, I gave you guys the wrong size. It's 24 inches tall by 11 foot and 7/8. So it's 22.17 square feet on the front.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that'll be fine. I mean, we're not doing a compliance review right now. Yeah, just to clear it
I
up.
was gonna say, when she said that, I thought that was not correct, because I knew it was in compliance. The only question was adding the
so let's
7 to the
let's
pricing
sort of
cabinet.
get back on track a little bit. Really, what you pulled up said that the ordinance allows the digital sign
Right.
on the back of the building already. On page
Right.
45. Digital sign, attached sign affixed to the wall, display, etc. So the only thing we're discussing is, it's already allowed in the ordinance, the digital sign.
Mm-hmm.
What only thing we have to discuss, I guess, is the inclusion of, quote, 7-Eleven as part of that digital sign.
Correct.
If we say that, that 7-Eleven is different than the digital, unless you wanted to make it 7-Eleven in digits instead of a sign.
Well, we can't add the brand to the ordinance, but I think what you're getting at is to add the allowance of the company's name
In order
as an
to,
extra dimension in the digital sign section, and then call that a day.
yeah, I think that's what, and
I do have an option that you guys might like better than just the traditional square sign that I have shown. Do you want me to kind of show you what that
Yeah,
looks
sure.
like? Okay.
Melinda,
Thank you. You tell I spend too much time in education, right? I just raise my hand. My question is this though, from what I'm understanding, Kathleen and Jessica, y'all legally have to include the 7-Eleven logo to say that you're selling this fuel.
Correct.
Right? You
Right.
legally have to do that. Okay, so if we're gonna have the gas station there, the real thing is, are we gonna allow you to be legally compliant? And Rohit, if that's the case, can we
Correct.
put something in there about signs are allowed as legally required? And then that way, that takes, because this is a legal requirement, this isn't us. And we can discuss how we want it to look to make it look pretty. But if it's legal, I don't know how we get a say in this if the gas station's gonna go in. And from my understanding at this point, the gas station's going in. So we're really discussing then with regards to hours of operation and can they have 12 pumps instead of 8?
thank you, Melinda. That's where I was headed, is that, just, no matter what the conversation was, that Paul was party to 2, 3, however many years ago it was, the digital part was allowed, and the state says they have to have their name associated with that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And that would be unique to the gas station, to the other gentleman's point about the other out parcels.
Yeah.
They're not going to be gas stations. So this is kind of a unique, it's unique in that what we're required to do by law does not fit within the current ordinance, hence the text amendment request for the signage on the back.
So can I ask a question? If you're only allowed one digital sign, how are you displaying the prices of your gas on the front of the building?
We're not.
They're not. Yeah.
We're not.
Other than driving up and looking at the pump then, right?
Right.
Anyone coming in internally through the parking lot, coming off Providence Road, or like if you put, depending on where you put the sign, they might not even see the price of the gas if it's hidden behind trees on that back wall facing Newtown.
Right?
Right.
Correct. They may have to pull up to the pump.
That doesn't make any sense.
The point that we're compliant with weights and measures, then we're compliant to, you all. So, I mean, if you guys wanted it to be more visible in a different place, we would be happy to place it there. But it would
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, Rohit, why would they only be able to put a digital sign with pricing display on the back of the building? That doesn't, I mean, I would imagine like that would be an ordinance if it was a second sign. Like, I don't understand why if they only get one, they have to put it on the back. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, Kelly, I think if you go over to Blakeney, I think it's a Circle K there, they have the same problem.
That marathon.
Yeah, you can't see it, it's there because it has to be, but, you really have to go to the pump. So I see what you're saying, yeah, it doesn't work. I'd love to see the price of the gas. A lot of times you pass by because you can't see the price of the gas.
And most people go to that marathon from an internal entrance, not from.
Oh, was it a marathon? Okay.
Yeah, it's a. I don't know if it's the marathon's the gas, because it's like one of the only ones around there, so I frequently have to go to it. So.
And you can't see the price, right?
Can't see the. I don't even care because you run out of gas if you have to go to anywhere else. So. Yeah, I don't know. Is it even allowed rotate in the front if they wanted to put it in the front somewhere?
The ordinance said on the back. I mean, the previously approved, Marvin Gardens ordinance said one digital sign on the back of the building adjacent to the right-of-way or facing the right-of-way. It didn't say one wherever they wanted it. It said one on the back.
What does that mean, facing the right of way?
The street right of way.
The road, yeah, just the street. But at that time, they probably didn't realize how large these trees were. I don't know when that was written, but, maybe they just didn't realize all the landscaping or the trees within the amount of time when that was written, like how large it would be or how much it would cover at that line of sight.
So technically that left-hand side that, of the back, because you could probably argue either side of that of the back, maybe not. It almost makes more sense to put it over there because someone might be able to see it from Providence Road, maybe.
What?
But I don't think it's allowed.
If I may ask, I think perhaps if we could get the approval and then in terms of exactly where the sign is located on the building, can that be worked out in the design review with Rohit when we, as part of the design piece? Rohit, how do you suggest we, just so that we don't get tangled up with where it's going to be versus the fact we need additional signage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know the specifics of this sign, but a lot of signs do have to get reviewed by the design review board, which is the planning board, whenever they get proposed. So at this point, if you're just talking about the text amendment, then we might be in a position where this same board can review where the sign goes, as you said, if it were to be allowed.
And I think we'd be happy to, have that conversation once everybody can be on site, kind of get a feel for that.
And we also have the option, not just the standard Fox logo that is traditionally used. And we've recently, be revamping the 7-Eleven signs. So this recently came up as an option. You'll see here it's a wall channel logo that could go in front of that pricer. This one is a much larger size just to show you an example of what it would look like. But it seems like this might be more in line with your examples in your ordinance.
Well,
Rohit and John, this goes to council anyway, right? We can give our recommendation, and that's all they're asking for anyway. And council's going to make the final decision, so we can give our suggestion on what we want, give it to council for their final approval. We're not making final approvals, we're making recommendations anyway.
In the meantime, can you find that law, like, when between now and the council meeting? I would like to include that in the packet.
Yes.
Hey, I just want to also jump in again and try and back everybody up, because again, many of the folks who are on the planning board today were not on it then. And what I will tell you is that when this project came in front of us, there was sort of this just general feeling that we were trying to maintain a village feel, even though this was going to be larger than anything that we previously approved. We were trying to create something of a village feel, and people had in mind things like Pinehurst or Asheville or Biltmore Village in Asheville. That's what we all were trying to create with these rules. So that's why the signs look like they do. We're trying to have, instead of having, you know, the bright yellow McDonald's logo, what we thought was, okay, if it's carved in wood and it's backlit, maybe then it would look okay. That's what people were trying to do with these rules. So I'm just trying to put everybody back in the mindset of where we were, say, 3 years ago. Changing subjects to the number of gas pumps, I will say what I see there looks good to me, particularly because of the spacing. If you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 feet between the gas pump and the parking spaces, that's almost 2 car lengths. So to be able to kind of pull in and out of there, that looks fine. So I'll say I'm in favor of the pump change. I'm opposed to the hours change, and on the signage, I would like to see it better than what I've seen so far. To be able to see it better on my screen before I can say I'm fine.
Hi, this is Jeremy with Kevin Horn. Can I make a comments about the hours of operation? Just want to share that with you very quickly. You know, 7-Eleven business model always has been 24 hours for the convenience store. And I want to kind of share that with you, the reason behind it. And I'll give you an example. You know, when you have a sick child at home at night, you know, at midnight, and you don't have the Tylenol to help to reduce the fever, you go to any, you know, you couldn't find anything, you know, any store that offered at the time. And that's what the convenience store is all about. You know, you're providing that, you know, that kind of services to the community. It's something that after hours, and that you couldn't find for any store. So you go to convenience store and get the Tylenol so you can go home and give it to your sick child, you know, to reduce the fever or something. So that's kind of the model behind it. I just want to share that with you, and you know, the reason why we're asking for these hours is to really try to service the community, you know, after hours when you couldn't find something that you need urgently, you know, like Tylenol, like things like that. Just an example I want to share it.
Jeremy, I think that's good, and I understand what you're saying, but there's a CVS across the street.
But it closes even earlier. You know, it's later, but
because
I think that
we're trying to maintain a small village feel.
Yeah.
Even this is a larger development than we've previously
That's
approved. We're trying to maintain a small village feel, and 24 hours was definitely never something we would have considered.
Right. No, we understand. I'm in Davidson. I've been in Davidson for 20 years, and it's the same kind of culture as what you have in Marvin in terms of trying to have it. It's really about a design standard.
I want to echo some of the things that Paul said. I agree with the expansion of the pumps or the fueling stations. I don't think that the expanding to 4 a.m. really serves the Marvin community. I think it serves the passing through community. So, you know, when Paul came back to kind of what the original purpose was, it doesn't make sense with their original vision to expand the hours. But I do think that the digital sign, I don't understand why it can't be on the front of the building, because that's where people are going to be mostly coming from, an internal entry. Because especially if it's on the back and no one can see it, what's the point? You want people to actually see the price of the gas. So my only thing about that is that there's no way that we can even vote on a text amendment, because if it's really a legality for them to actually have some sort of branding representation next to the gas prices, you know, that's a completely different type of text than what's currently there.
Yeah. And the text amendment is not about the location. It's really about just being able to have it with the pricer. Just as a point.
yeah.
John, you want
The way that it's written is the digital sign can only be in the back. So, yeah.
That's what the ordinance says today.
Yeah.
Can we see the sign again, please? Can someone put that back up?
Jessica, can you put up the original, the other plan that you had that showed both the front of the building and the one on the back?
Yeah, I'm actually more concerned about the digital sign and the extension that has the logo.
Back, no. There, right there. So it's the sign that's shown in the bottom, it's the piece that's addition to the Pricer cabinet.
Yeah.
Does the ordinance say it has to be on the back of the building?
It does. Which I don't understand why it couldn't be on the, like, not the awning, but the cover.
So can I ask again, how is that 7-Eleven lit?
So we can do it a couple different ways. I know in a lot of towns, the white portion of the sign has to be opaque, so that white is not, shining so brightly at night, and you would only see the 7-Eleven portion in the middle.
So what I know we didn't allow was we didn't allow like backlighting, right? We didn't allow like bright lights to be behind that facade. So the question is, what is that? How is that lit? Is my question.
Oh, it's internally lit. It's just plastic.
Yeah, and so I thought that was not allowed.
That is allowed. That is allowed, and I can show you where it is. It's on page 34, wall signs. Wall signs may be internally or externally illuminated.
Okay, I thought it had to be halo lit or something like that.
Well, the halo lit is going to give you that bright lighting from the sides.
Yeah.
This 7-Eleven, this new logo that we have recently been using, seen right here. So if you guys all are okay with more of a channel type of letter, halo illuminated, we could make this sign at the same height as the Pricer cabinet and set it next to it. So you're not getting a box sign, you're getting this channel sign.
But again, that's about design, not the ability to have it.
Well, that is part of the ordinance too, though, like they're...
Right.
Yeah, but that would be the design review versus
Right.
whether you can have, the name 7-Eleven in conjunction with the digital price sign.
Well, we have to label
Yeah.
definitely, how we're pricing it.
Yeah, I understand that. So really, right now we're not discussing the design of the sign. We're discussing, can you have the sign?
Exactly.
And we'll discuss the design of it during the design review.
But they're legally required to.
I understand that.
What's the discussion?
Yes, and we'll get that statute to Rohit for the council.
3 different proposals, one or 3, or one for the...
Rohit, I'm good with them making one motion on this, or do you disagree or agree?
I would
if we can
actually lean towards making separate motions for each of the 4 revisions.
Okay.
Amendments requested.
Let's have a good time.
I think it's worth.
You're saying 4 different motions, Rohit?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go.
Jessica, could you unshare your screen, please?
I'll share my screen. That'll kick her off from sharing.
Okay.
All right. So let's see if we can move this forward. In regards to item number 1, change the hours of operation of the fuel pumps from 6 a.m. till midnight to 4 a.m. till midnight. A motion on that item. Anybody?
I move that we do not allow the change of hours of operation.
Okay.
I second that.
That was
Kelly?
Kelly. Okay.
Oh, was it Kelly?
Linda.
I was, that was Melinda.
Melinda, all right. Yeah, for you.
All those females sound alike, Melinda, apparently.
Well, that's the reason, Rohit, if we have all of the people's pictures up there, it's easier for me to help.
Oh, yeah. So I'll stop sharing, so that we can just look at them.
That's the reason that's the reason I'm here, trying to look at a big screen instead of
Right.
home with like the rest of you.
And that was Mike that made the motion, correct?
That was Michael.
Okay.
Second by
Melinda.
Melinda. Any further discussion? All in favor of Michael's, Paul?
Could you repeat the motion? So
Yeah, okay. Please repeat it, Michael. Or
I move it.
Austin.
I move that we do not allow the change of hours from 6 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Okay. So, approved? All right. Unanimous? All right. Item number 2, change the hours of operation of the convenience store from 6 a.m. to midnight to be 4 a.m. to midnight. Motion on that one.
I will move that we do not change the hours.
All right, a second. That was Melinda. Paul, second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Increase the maximum fuel positions from 8 positions to 12 positions. A motion on that.
I'll make a motion on that to approve, moving from 8 positions to 12 positions.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Paul. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Allow a second wall sign so that one sign can be on Newtown Road side and one be at the entrance.
I move that we allow a second wall sign and the positioning of the wall sign to be determined by council.
Could I add subject to?
Yep.
Providing the state ordinance
Yes.
to.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
All right. A second on that? I'll second it. Just keep- All right, any further discussion? All in favor? As conditioned? Show of hands, please. All right, approved, unanimous.
Take a breather.
Good. Thank you all so much for your time and good discussion.
Yeah,
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, we'll be in touch, and I think what the conditions mean is that the exact wording of that text amendment for the 4th one might be a little different by the time it's approved by council, but it will just generally allow something that was presented at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And we'll get that ordinance, we'll get that statute to you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Very
Thank you
much.
for coming.
Appreciate your time.
Yep. Moving forward. Discussion of the minor subdivision application 20-12515. 3117 Waxhaw Marvin Road, 1 lot into 2 lots. Rohit.
Okay, so this one is a little bit, I guess, only different from the previous ones in that, like, it was my fault that I sent him my revisions a little later than I usually do. I did get the revised final plat based on the revisions that I put in the packet. So I'm going to share that on my screen right now. But the general idea is that he has a 7-something acre property, and the proposal is to change it into 2 lots, both with front lots on Marvin Road, and both are well in compliance with our ordinances, with the only caveat being that there are some there's some non-conforming structures, which would mean that the structures that won't be compliant with our current ordinance are allowed because they existed before, and that's okay as long as you don't alter those non-conforming structures. I have to rotate this somehow. I want to rotate this, so give me a second. Okay. Let's see. I have to annotate this 2 dashed lines. I think we're gonna have to get this final plat cleaned up a little bit, but it does contain everything that I wanted in it. This is one building envelope. Whoops. And this is the other one, so there's 2 lots, 3 acres and 5 acres, so it's 8 acres total. And there's an existing house here, roughly, and then they plan to put a new one here, roughly. So that's all I really have to say to it. Other than just like cleaning up the final plot a little bit, I think the old setbacks don't need to be shown. But other than that, I would just recommend approval of this 1 lot into 2 lot subdivision, and the applicant, I can see still there, very small screen. I think the applicant Ross Allen is there. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I'm here.
Okay, so is there any questions for him? If we could have some consensus to allow him. Do you have any other comments that you want to make?
Let's get ahead of it this time instead of behind it. Like I said,
Sure.
just get the consensus to allow him to speak or answer us if we have any questions. All approved? Okay. All right. I get you. So you've got, I'll ask first, you've got an existing barn and an open shed that are, I guess right now technically approved because they were behind the house. Is that right, Rohit? In the large part, in the original parcel?
Actually, that's a question for Mr. Allen. Were those, the barn and the shed, were they there, like how long were they there?
I've owned the property for 1.5 years, and they were there when I bought it. And if you go back on in the timeline for like 10 or 15 years, I think they're still there.
Okay. Well, in that case, it's very likely that they were there. This lot is a very old lot. It's very likely that those structures were there before we had zoning, in which case, we don't make anyone remove structures that for some reason are not compliant with our current ordinance if they were there before the ordinance.
It was originally 4 lots, and then the original owner, I think, put it all into 1 lot.
Yeah,
it shows the old lot lines on there.
So
right. I guess that's a little bit of history here, that this lot used to be 4 lots, and those lot lines are seen here. So this lot used to be 4 lots, and then it was recombined into 1. That kind of doesn't affect the subdivision application as it is today. I asked around and found out it doesn't matter it used to be 4 lots. Now that it's 1, it still has to go through a subdivision application to make it 2. So that's why we're here today. But those 2 lots are substantially compliant in their lot shape and frontage, etc. It's the only issue is that the existing houses, and I think he's noted that down here. I had to.
Do you live there?
I do. I live there.
Okay, in the existing house.
In that house. Yeah.
Okay, and when it's subdivided, you're gonna stay in the existing house, or you're gonna build a new one?
I'm gonna build a new one and move into the new one. We haven't decided if we're gonna sell the other lot or the other house or not.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my arms around how the 2 accessory structures move over to the new house, or
So I wanted to keep the barn.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to,
It's a great asset.
yeah,
Yeah.
the barns are.
Yeah.
You know, it would be, I don't know, but, you know, it read real simple until I started looking at the plat with the barn and the shed. And, you know, I don't know whether, yeah, it's grandfathered in and it's,
Yeah, grandfather is a good way to say it.
yeah. It just sort of makes it look a little more complicated.
Kelly has a question. She's raising her hand.
I have a couple questions. First of all, with that lot line, dividing where the barn and the current house is, would they meet the setback requirements for an individual lot?
The barn meets the setback requirements from the side yard because that's 20 feet for an accessory structure. This was 10, and that's why I asked him. This was the old version that I have sharing right now, and that's why I asked him to revise the line a little bit, and so now it's 20. But as far as front setbacks, when it comes to non-conforming structures, we only ask that when you're changing lot lines or structures or something, that you don't increase their non-conformity. In any case, the barn and the shed might not be 85 feet from the street, and that's not something that we can ask them to change. We just call it a non-conforming structure.
Okay, and then the other question I have is this part of Valhalla, and
Yes.
A2A, and do they allow subdividing?
Well, this lot was 4, and it then became 1, so I can't imagine that it wouldn't allow one lot that used to be 4 to become 2.
The HOA understands I'm in the process of getting this done.
Okay, so as long as you're in compliance with them, that's between you and them. And then the last thing I wanted to ask is, I'm looking at Google Earth, and is behind the house, or actually that's the barn, is that like a vegetable garden or a cemetery?
There's a garden behind the barn right now.
Okay, you said a garden?
Well, there's a new, so what you're looking at, I can't see it there, but that's gonna be a new garden, yeah, because it's a lot smaller than the existing garden.
Okay, I just wasn't sure exactly. From an aerial view, it's kind of hard to tell what it is, so I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't be moving any bodies.
It'll probably be smaller than what's there.
Oh yeah, that's as long as there's a heart in the grass. That's pretty funny. Thank you.
Any other questions? So,
I had one. I just, looking at the annotations, I don't know who did it. It looks like page 87 in our packet, the blue annotations.
Yeah, those are my remarks. He's made the revisions based on those remarks.
Is that, I mean, it looks like lot 1, is that a pond in front of the barn or next to the open shed?
No, that looks like that's where they drew their driveway features, and that was
Circle? Okay. All right.
That's what I understood, right?
That's correct.
But it looks like it goes on both lots, is that right?
Well, that's just where it is today.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's where it'll be when you do the lot on
Yeah,
this
more than
now.
likely we'll separate the driveways.
Okay, I got it. That was it.
Put a fence through there and get some screening.
You got it.
Can you go back to the conceptual drawing that you were on a second ago to show like where that there?
How will the barn and the shed be accessed if that's the?
Well, the shed, it will be accessed from the the future house side, that's the only side that's open right now. And the barn currently has openings from the front and the back.
Okay, but like, in its existing structure, there's actually a driveway that goes to the barn, right?
It doesn't really go through the barn.
Okay,
It's just a gravel driveway that makes a circle.
okay, and so when you're done with this, that'll all sort of be,
Yeah, it'll be separate.
okay,
I'll separate it whenever I sell the house, the old house, but we haven't decided what we're gonna do. We have some friends we might let stay there.
The new design is beautiful.
Thank you.
So, Rohit, so just sort of recapping, subject to the wrinkles from the existing structures, the subdivision meets our requirements in all manner.
Yeah, plenty. We have the 130-foot lot width, 50-foot of frontage, size, everything's met with plenty of room.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody? Anybody like to make a proposal?
I can make it. Melinda, go ahead. I'll second you, girl.
All right, I make a motion to approve the request as submitted.
All right, and Kelly seconded. All in favor? We lost Paul. He's somewhere.
Oh yeah, I have to stop sharing. Sorry, I have to remember to do that.
Okay, there he is. Unanimous. So it goes to council sometime in November.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the time the plot would be when? You said November?
Rohit?
November 10th.
Okay.
Right, Austin?
All right.
Sorry that you had to sit through all that other, but
I appreciate it. Thank you, fellas.
thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck, Russ.
Thank you.
All right. Next on this update on the land use plan.
Okay, this is a quick one. So our attorney noticed that, land use plans are supposed to have public hearings before they're adopted. And although we have a town hall, it doesn't count as a public hearing, because we didn't announce it that way. So we're gonna have a public hearing on November 10th, which will be the topic of discussion will be the land use plan and its adoption, but the council's basically already reviewed it. They didn't provide any comments at the October 13th meeting, so, but I mean, we had a public input meeting. There were not many comments that required any revisions. So it should be pretty quick and straightforward on the 10th. That's all I have for that.
Rohit, did the rest of the planning board weigh in on us approving and sending it to council based on their negative or positive?
I didn't hear any comments from anyone after the September 16th meeting.
You didn't either, did
Any
you?
email comments?
Never received any.
Austin didn't get any comments either.
All right, anybody, hold your breath, like, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I think the time's passed.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good document,
Yeah.
so I think it covers everything. Pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, let it go.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Update on the Marvin Heritage District name. Rohit.
Okay, I think that this is the first meeting that we had all together since the council officially voted to make its name the Marvin Heritage District. Considering Village Center District is kind of just a concept. It's not even really a name. If you think about it, the district in the center of the village. So it has a name now, and it's called the Marvin Heritage District. And we think this would be a great, starting point to really convey what the district is about in a lot of ways. Preserving the history and making the gallery a place for Marvin. So that's really all this agenda item is about. We'll try as much as we can to start calling it that from now. And John and I are still struggling to do, but we will. We should be calling it that. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Discussion, consideration of the zoning district for the Marvin Heritage District.
Okay, so this one was a tabled conversation from last time. The way we could arrange this district, there are a lot of different ways, but looking at all of them and looking at the concerns that we have, I think having one conventional district with all the village center uses being conditional would be the best way to go, because it allows the properties to be rezoned. But we still would have to see a site plan at the time of when the property owner is trying to develop. So nothing in the village center uses is going to be by right, even after they get rezoned, but they still have the guarantee, that at least their property was rezoned. So that's pretty much all I have to say, just to recap. And I just wanted to get your guys' consensus. I don't know if it has to be like a motion or anything, but just to get your guys' consensus that after looking at pros and cons, that's the way to go.
Well, let me throw out, the light bulb came on to me that, if we follow that format, it basically is the same format as the commercial corridor conditional use zoning. I mean, not the verbiage, but the concept of how it works, which is the property that we had an application for over at Bonds Grove and Providence Road. I think that's probably the way to go, but I reread that, Rohit, and the one for the commercial corridor district, that includes everything that I thought we were going to be doing separately. It includes, in addition to the conditional uses and stuff, but it includes architectural design and landscaping and all these other items, which I thought maybe were going to be as separate documents. I'm not sure whether it came to anybody's memory that that's how it sort of is mirrored.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me address the first thing first. I think there's one really important distinction between the commercial conditional district and the conventional district with conditional uses, and that's the conditional district, the commercial conditional district people have to submit an approvable site plan before they even get their property rezoned, and that makes it so that their property is only residentially zoned until they get their rezoning. That leaves a lot of uncertainty for them. They put in a lot of effort and their property is still zoned residential, for example. But conventional district with conditional uses, we could just rezone all 13 properties at once, and then they can apply for a site plan whenever they're ready. So I think that's the big difference. But the other point is that we have all of the architecture and signage, etc., in the ordinance, and that's been a problem actually. It's been a big problem because that kind of regulation, that level of regulation could easily just be in a different document. An ordinance is very disorganized and hard to follow because of that all being ignored. So both of those things are kind of lessons learned on how to do the village center better than that time. So
yeah, that's
Do you want this?
Melinda spoke first.
You talked first, I just rose, but you go first. Okay.
Okay, then, Kelly.
Magnets. Just a quick question about, shoot, what was my question now? The separate document, is that legally binding, in terms of if you pull out the design elements of the ordinance? Does the ordinance just refer to a separate document that has to be followed?
Right, the ordinance, am I reading? I'm not able to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
yeah,
you.
we hear
You're
you.
fine.
Oh, okay. So if the zoning ordinance refers to the strategic plan, for example, document, the other document, then that could be referred to when the applicant is submitting a site plan. So in that case, it can be legally binding. It can have the minimums and maximums that you would compare to in the conditional district review, a conditional use permit review.
And would it have to go through the approval process like an ordinance change would?
You mean when the strategic plan is adopted, it would go through planning board and council, yes.
All right, yeah, so you answered my question, thanks.
Okay, I might have a similar question, but I'm going to use different words and see if it's the same. I don't know if it's the same. So, but here's so the difference between the two conditional, right, where it's zoned residential, but between options 1 and 2 is that option 1, they have to come to us with a plan first before we're going to rezone anything. And then option 2 is we've rezoned it, but you still have to come to us with a plan now and talk specifics.
Yes, that's exactly right, and that's why there's a lot of reasons why that idea is better. I think you muted yourself.
Okay. So my other question then is, if we're looking at maintaining this heritage, right, and that's the whole idea behind this, why would we not want a plan? And I understand that puts onus on the developers, right, whether that be the landowner or a third party or whoever, but if the goal is to maintain the heritage, why wouldn't we want to know on the front end before we agree to even zoning anything that we're going to have heritage?
You mean, what's our guarantee that the property owners will do what we want in the conditional uses, you mean?
I mean, it sounds like the downside is that if we do the first one, right, where they have to come to us with a plan before we will rezone, right? Whereas the second option is we rezone and now you come to us with a plan with specifics. Either way, they're coming to us with a plan, and don't we have more control as a village to maintain heritage on the first option than the second option?
Melinda's not quite this, we have the same amount of control in either scenario, but what it is basically the conventional district with VC use is conditional, a lot of freaking words.
Yeah, sorry.
Basically just says that, hey, this area, we're gonna go ahead and put a zone on top of you, so that says if you want to go commercial or if you want to, that would be approved, but you still have to submit a plan. The original one, they're going to have to put a lot of money into a plan before we even say, oh, that may or may not be commercial. But we all know that it's going to be, like, that's what we're talking about. This area is supposed to be rezoned.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The second one actually effectively, because I've been going back and forth and having a hard time deciding if the Heritage Center is happening, in Heritage District is happening, is it not happening, how do we decide? And from what I'm actually hearing now, then the second one says, yes, it's us effectively saying, yep, without a plan, it can happen, here's your zoning, go forward. Is that right?
Well, there's a yes and no. The zoning district would be established in several months from now, like maybe 6 to 8 months from now. In that time, we will have already figured out whether we are officially doing this district or not. And so when we do decide, and that's after an economic feasibility study based on, the density and uses and stuff, we do decide that we are doing this district, then we also already know the boundaries of this district. And in this case, we are kind of lucky in a unique scenario where all the property owners are in close contact with us, and they do all have a vision that kind of fits within a very narrow range of, what we intend to do with this district. But with the district, the commercial uses being conditional, in any case, we will still be able to review every aspect of their plan. It's not like a green light to do anything yet, because even by right uses will still only be like residential.
Okay, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I think we all are. That's the.
All right, I'm just taking
Yeah,
it in and
it's a hard
trying to
topic
figure it out.
yeah, it's a hard topic to digest. That's understandable.
That, I found that the kind of grid that Rohit made with the 4 different types of districts, and then like medium, hard, easy, that is the most helpful thing I have read since I started the planning board.
Thanks, I made it for you.
I think that it really does help explain the slight differences. It's kind of nuanced in a way, but in the wording, but it makes a huge difference in actually how a landowner would go about doing something. They're very different from one to the next, but the conventional, I think we talked about the last one, conventional district, the second one was the one that made the most sense when we were talking the last time. They have the option, they don't have to cash in on it, but they have the option to do it. But before they move ahead with anything, they still have to submit a plan, and we still have to approve it. So this still gives us control, but they don't have to apply to be rezoned.
Yeah, and that's the big problem that we're having with this conditional district on Providence Road. It's they spent a lot of money with no guarantee that they will get their zoning. And that's one property owner. In this case, with 13 property owners, it's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. Make them submit plans without any guarantee that they'll be allowed something at some point. And of course, again, this is only after we do decide that we are doing the district. We just have to think about this much in advance because it takes a long time to create a new zoning district. Let's create the skeleton first.
But back to my question, unlike the commercial corridor that we already have, assuming that we go forward with one conventional district with the conditional uses, we would not try to incorporate the architectural and the landscaping and signage and everything that's in that other.
We would want to figure that out before establishing the zoning district, but that would be in that separate document.
Yeah, that's it. Just that the zoning ordinance seems cumbersome with all that in it.
Right. And so I would really love to see a streamlined ordinance that does have the regulations that it needs, but also refers to the strategic plan when determining the conditions, that would be allowed in the conditional use permit.
And that would not really be any different than our other zoning ordinance, say our residential ordinance that says that you have to be in compliance with our landscaping, our tree ordinance, etc., which is a separate ordinance, correct? It would be very similar to that, as far as
right, but everything pertaining to this.
As far as
right. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean as far as function, it would say, you would still have to be in compliance with these other ordinances. that we have to create?
Right. The ordinances that we would create, we wouldn't say, in this Marvin Heritage District zoning, you have to do this, this, and this, but then also refer to some other existing ordinance somewhere else in the book. No, this would be that's why the separate document is so important, because it kind of sets a standalone, like this is what you should do for this zoning, and I've looked at other cities, you know, they have district zonings that are just a standalone document. Like you could package it to one PDF, and that would be what you work for the regulations.
Yeah. Where are we right now? We're not really, well, I guess we're not at a point where even if we want to, we can start writing this ordinance, because the council still has to approve moving forward, I guess, from a financial, right?
Right, and I guess that's why, you know, I put consideration in the agenda item, but I realized a little later that I don't really think that we need a consideration of anything right now. Just maybe a consensus that would be the way to go, because I do need to start early. Even if, let's say we don't do the district and some work does not, you know, ever become anything, I still need to start this early, and I need the skeleton that we're going to be using.
I'd like Paul or Michael, y'all had your 2 cents worth, because, you know, you weren't around at our last meeting. We had some of this conversation last meeting, but, you know, of course, Paul, you've been around for a long time, even though you aren't as gray as some of us. You know, what's your feeling? Unmute yourself.
I don't know that I have a feeling other than to say, yeah, I'm okay with trying to make it as easy as possible for the village to, you know, be able to move forward. So I'm sort of leaning on Rohit here to sort of lean us in the right direction.
Yeah, and he and I have had, you know, additional conversations and, you know, still trying to get my arms around this thing. But I think the conventional district with conditional uses, you know, makes sense, you know, but, you know, if we understand how we do separate the residential from the commercial, from the institutional and stuff.
Rohit, do you want them to make a motion to formally recommend this, or do you want them to?
No, I don't think anything is required right now, except maybe just a consensus, that we can at least start with that, and if for some reason we change our mind later, then I could probably adapt what I've done so far into something else.
Well, yeah, what if we have a consensus that that's the direction that we think we go at this moment, would that enable you to start gathering, you know, focusing your attention to gather the information on that instead of all the options?
Yes, I have been gathering different, you know, uses and housing types, etc. already, but I don't have an outline to put it in yet, because we haven't gotten a zoning district format. And then that kind of does set the tone for, you know, how I go about the rest of the document. Because in the conventional use with conventional district with conditional uses, it does kind of let us say that this is the zone, this is the district, and these are the properties that I know in advance that we'll be looking at when determining some of the details. Though these are the properties that I should apply the details to. It would really help a lot, I think, just to know that in advance. Not even just for me, not even just the developers, I guess.
Yeah. Is everybody in agreement maybe that we'll have a consensus to focus on that that structure? Or does anybody have a problem with focusing on that structure? Maybe that's easier.
I mean, I know this is a hard topic to really form opinions on, so.
Yeah, no,
Is that a silent approval?
yeah,
Well,
let's
let me ask it this way, Rohit. If you start heading down a path, what do you envision could happen where one of us might raise our hand and say, oh, no, we've got to go a different path, right? I mean, to be honest, I'm struggling to understand the difference between these four choices. So I'm troubled to see that, 4 months from now, I might say, oh, well, I want to go down path 1, but you chose 3. I can't see me doing that because I don't know what path 1 was or is.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. Once I start filling in the skeleton, based on the conversations we had in both this group and the committee, it will be more evident what will be required of us and of the property owners. And if then you decide that this is not the way that you want to go, I would have to do a bit of switching around the skeleton a little bit, but it wouldn't be too painful, I guess.
But and again, I'm saying I don't see where I would raise my hand and say, oh, I don't like your skeleton. Let's start with another one because I don't know one skeleton from
Right. Unless you start seeing it built out, which I understand. I guess that's why I guess like a simple consensus. It wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt if we ended up changing our mind later. It really wouldn't be that bad. But it does help to know, just so it's not just me picking, very important foundational, aspects of this development. That's, I guess, why I'm here.
I agree. I think it's good to start with, where our consensus is. And then, once we get working on it and we realize, well, we didn't think about this. And this is what happens when we get to this point that we can change course. I don't think, like you said, I don't think that's the end of the world. But I think it's good to have a structure in front of you to start the course.
You can't
exactly.
Yeah, I don't think you can work on 4 different, directions at one time.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And I don't think we want to choose any option that would be hard on the landowner or hard on the village. Right? So that kind of rules out 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't envision us picking one that's going to be hard on us. And I think if we pick one that's hard on the developers, then it probably doesn't happen.
So, show of hands, is everybody, do we have a consensus to move in that direction right this moment?
Do you want to state what direction you're saying, John?
Okay. 1 conventional district with village center conditional uses.
Yeah, number 2, I guess, on this.
Number 2 now, yeah.
Number 2.
Okay,
Unanimous.
thank you. And, hey, that's the easy part. I'm afraid that it's gonna be like the land use plan before we're over with.
They don't scare everybody.
I know it, but hey, we haven't done anything easy, even a lot split. All right. Moving on. Discussion of the Planning Board and Marvin Heritage District Strategic Plan Committee relationship. Rohit.
Okay. Do you guys hear me? I don't know if I'm muted or not.
You're good.
Okay. So the relationship, I brought this up to council at a previous meeting, and I think there was a consensus that there are several members of the planning board on the committee, and for that reason, there wouldn't be any reason for the planning board to have oversight of the committee. But statutorily, the planning board does advise the council on all planning and zoning matters. So, all that said, I think the way going forward is that the planning board would reflect upon what was discussed at the committee meeting, and then the planning board members can then take what was the consensus of the planning board to the next meeting, as opposed to the planning board giving, advising or directing the committee. I think that would be pretty amenable because again, there are a lot of diverse people at this committee table, and to give each group of people, a fair shot at expressing their interests, I think this is a pretty fair way to go about it. And at the end, of course, the planning board will have the opportunity to recommend the strategic plan and zoning district to the council, to review it in its entirety. So that is what came out of the discussion, and it's not the end all be all. Of course, if the planning board now feels differently, you could say so, and then we could bring it back up at another council meeting. But that's where we're at right now.
So can you explain this just a little bit? Is the essence of this is that the planning board won't oversee the committee, but the planning board will still be the recommending body to the village council?
Yeah, that's right. Does that the difference between those things make sense?
Will the committee still report, quote unquote, to the planning board?
Right, that's what I'm saying won't happen. It's not like there's going to be a two-way conversation between the planning board as a board and the committee. It's just that planning board members who are on the committee can take the ideas of the planning board to the next committee meeting.
But that any matters that the planning board holds jurisdiction over will eventually be reviewed by them, correct?
Austin, could you say that again, but towards the mic?
Sorry. But the planning board will have jurisdiction over anything the committee does that specifically falls within their jurisdiction in the law.
Right. Anything that's, I would say most of what the committee does fall under the planning board's purview. Some things that don't might include business recruitment, streetscape, I don't know. There are very limited things though.
How will the planning board, including those members who are not part of the committee, stay in the loop as to what the committee is doing?
We can bring the topics of the committee to the planning board at each next planning board meeting. All I mean to say is that the planning board as a board won't direct the committee to do anything.
Paul, I think that to answer that question, it's kind of how does the council know how does the council stay in the loop of what the planning board does? And what John goes to every meeting and tells them what we did the last meeting. And I think the same, Rohit, might be the same here. We could have a line item every meeting at the planning board is how did the last heritage?
Yes, I definitely think we should do that. In fact, we might, for the next several meetings, just have not just like an agenda item, but like as council has, like a separate section, like Marvin Heritage District Committee section, and then talk about various things that happen at the committee.
Rohit, since this committee is only stated to be in existence until May, it might just be easier to just do the agenda item, because if you're going to create if you create a separate heading, you're going to have to get them to amend their rules of procedure, and that's a whole process.
Well,
you got a good point there. Sure. Yeah, but I think it was definitely in my original conception of this, like the idea how this would go is that we would be talking about the results of the previous committee meeting at each subsequent planning board.
Yeah, I think that maybe, hopefully, that the strategic committee will spend more time down in the weeds and enable us to streamline things a little more, if that makes sense.
This division of responsibility is not to like separate the planning board from input into this district. It's more so that like compare how technical you guys get to the operations of council. This is kind of like the same relationship, but this Marvin Heritage District Committee will get even more technical than you guys get, for example, with the land use plan, while you guys can look at what they do and all the other things that you need to do, like the several reviews that we had in the beginning of this meeting.
So I wasn't at discussed, but I will say, I'm sort of having a negative reaction to what I'm hearing for a couple of reasons. One is I don't understand how the planning board will have a role in this process if they don't have a system where they can be kept in the loop, and two, have feedback flow through that system, and that would, in my mind, mean giving direction from time to time. I think it also, when you think about the controversial nature of this heritage district that we're talking about, to create some sort of off to the side organization that's going to manage the process, that is going to report to the council as opposed to the planning board, I think we're just adding to the potential that the public will be uncomfortable with the process. So I'm reacting negatively to what I'm hearing for those two primary reasons.
Those are the exact same reactions I had last time, Paul, and I talked to Christina, I don't know, last week or something. What I heard from her is slightly different than what I'm hearing today. But my concern is that we don't have input, and some of these things are going to be a function of, would have been a function of the planning board. Not everything, but some of them are. And that the strategic planning, I'm echoing so bad, sorry, it's bothering me. Strategic planning committee is actually going to end up informing ordinances or informing the land use plan. I'm not exactly sure how it was because I'm still trying to understand exactly what they're doing and what we're doing. But when I talked to Christina, one of the things she said was that the strategic planning committee would not be going directly to council, but they would be going through us. So they would give us the recommendations, and then we would either then pass those on to the council or then go back to them and say, tweak this. That was my understanding. I don't quite think that's what you're saying though, Rohit. So can you maybe comment or?
Yeah, I was about to say something in response to what Paul said. There is going to be somewhat of a feedback loop. It's not that you guys are going to be separate entities, but the feedback loop is more so that you guys do review everything that does come out of the committee, but you don't then go back as a board to direct the committee to make, I don't know, to make certain changes or make certain directions. Whereas it's going to be the planning board members who are on the committee that represent the planning board. Kind of a little bit differently than how, if council asks planning board to take on a task, and that's a direction from council. But in this case, the planning board member would represent the planning. And then whatever comes out of the committee will be reviewed by the planning. Does that quite answer it? So that's where that feedback loop, that's where that feedback loop exists.
Yeah, and all I would say is there have been occasions in the past where something sort of, I'll say, was decided by council before planning board really had input. And then when it came to planning board, the reaction of planning board was, well, council's already made it clear what they want, so what role are we going to have here? And we really don't add a lot when those situations occur. And it would seem to me that if you're setting up a committee that's going to be at the direction of council, and there's going to be a lot more direct communication between the committee and council, at that point, the situation is going to become clear, and I'm not sure what role the planning board would have at that point.
I think you might be overestimating the amount of direct communication that this committee will have with council. This committee and planning board is probably going to have more monthly types of communication just because you guys talk about what each other does, whereas council will probably only come in about maybe twice or thrice throughout the whole process.
But if this committee is not taking guidance from us, then who are they taking the guidance from? Who are they getting their directions from if they're not getting them from us?
Right, it's kind of just a slight difference between the planning board as a board giving direction versus the planning board members being on the committee. I think it's still a very powerful statement that 3 members of the planning board out of 7 are on this 9-member committee.
Yeah, no, I understand that concept. And the planning board, at least those 3 members, will have a lot to say. But the other X number, and I don't know how many people are on the planning board these days, won't have a lot to say. And that was not what I envisioned when the strategic committee was established. I was envisioning that planning board would continue to play planning board's role. Listen, council can do what they want here. I'm just expressing my view that this is setting up a separate system that I think they're going to regret in the end, because I think the village is going to react to this like, oh, look, they set up their own committee to accomplish this and cut out the other board.
I don't think that it's going to end up being that way. It's only the first meeting so far, and it was very orientation based, but I think if we have another meeting or 2 and, we kind of get in the groove of talking about the subjects that the committee talked about in this board, and then conveying the planning board's opinions at the next meeting, it will be clear that the other 4 members of the planning board they don't not have a voice.
But go back to what we just spent a few minutes on, even though we didn't come to any real answer. But this matrix that was prepared a few moments ago and we just discussed, why would we need to discuss this if there's a strategic committee that's going to build the plan for the center or the historic district or whatever we're calling it?
Yeah, I think that's also a pretty important distinction, because this strategic plan committee has a lot of members of the public and the property owners that I think will be debating very minute details of this district compared to what the planning board generally talks about. Like, if you consider your work on the land use plan and the character statements that you devised for this district, that set a lot of the foundation. And even throughout this process, I think there's an opportunity for the planning board to consider a lot more higher level topics. Like, for example, I think I'm going to be introducing form-based code versus Euclidean zoning in the next meeting, and that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be for you guys to determine, and then the committee can determine things like the beachhead buffer gap, if it's going to be 30 feet or 50 feet or 80 feet.
Where are they going to get that direction from if they don't get it from us?
Well, they'll get that from the land use plan, and the part of the land use plan that has to do with the village center district. It's not that you have no voice, it's that you've got the foundation in the land use plan. They're not starting from nothing.
Okay. I guess, again, I'm struggling then with the concept of what does it mean that we don't have oversight?
I think it will be more clear in next month or 2 that you will have a very tight role with this committee.
Yeah, I think it's just confusing because and this is what I asked the last time, is what is our role versus what is their role? And then I think if we actually start to see a list of the things, of topics that they're going to be discussing and the details they're going to be working out, it would make more sense to us as to what they're doing. But right now it just seems really broad, and it seems like they're deciding everything. But I mean, why are we even on the planning board if not to actually, plan? I mean, that was the whole point. And a lot of us actually are interested in got on the planning board because we wanted to make sure that voices were represented in this Marvin Heritage District. So, I mean, I trust our planning board friends. It's just, I kind of feel like our role has been taken away from us in a way, just because I don't quite yet understand what they're going to be doing.
Right, and I think it'll be clear. I mean, you guys worked on the land use plan for 3 years, and that very much set the character. it set a pretty narrow range of what, you know, like densities and uses would be discussed even by the committee. But again, even now, I mean, obviously that was in the past, and that sets the foundation for this committee, but even throughout the process of this committee, it will be clear that you guys will be talking about and giving input towards what the committee ends up, you know, deciding through the conversations about during the plan. I think if you give it one more month and we can, you know, reassess the role of, you know, the responsibility and roles between your two, the board and the committee, it will be a lot more clear even just next month.
I agree, Rohit. Let's have a few meetings, see what happens. You know, the committee reports back to the planning board. The planning board members report back, I should say, to the planning boards on what happened at that meeting. And then if there's concerns on what's going on at that meeting, we can address those concerns at that time. But we're addressing concerns that haven't even happened yet.
Right, so let me, you know, for the next planning board meeting, put, you know, the discussions of, you know, whatever transpired in the previous committee meeting, and then, you know, I think it will be more clear. I just think it will be more clear when we have one round of, you know, a committee meeting with, you know, actual deliberations, and then a planning board meeting, and then the next committee meeting. I think it will be clear that you will in fact have a pretty important role, you know, as the planning board members that are not on the committee will have, you know, still a pretty big say in this process.
Well, and Rohit, I think that if you want, I'd be happy to bluntly and without a lot of fanfare, because I don't necessarily understand all the words, still come back and share going both directions. So it's not going back to both the meetings anyways. Because best I can figure, and correct me if I'm wrong, and it may be helpful, Paul, to know what we did last time, and Kelly, is Rohit tried very desperately to bring a bunch of people who have no idea of any of the things we've been discussing, because they haven't felt the need to come to any of our meetings for the past year, and try to bring them up to date. And it was very well handled and a fantastic mess to watch. And I in the kindest ways, right? But I don't know, serving on both, I don't know how, if you're not digging in, if you're not passionately involved, if you're not doing the readings, if you're not coming to the meetings prepared, I think it'd be interesting to see what this 7 more times committee can actually do.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the topics very narrowly focused. So that, you know, there is obviously a range of, you know, say housing types to consider. We consider, you know, a row of houses versus small row of houses versus detached versus very detached, and then keep it at that. Like, you know, just give various options towards, you know, and obviously I'm going to suggest things that I think will actually get them 0 votes. But like, that's just an example of how focused I intend to keep some of the conversations that are happening in the committee. And then, you know, the planning board can weigh in on whatever happens.
I told Christina this, I just want to make sure that the new committee members that are not our planning board members have read the land use plan. They have actually read the survey, because I saw some things about, you know, people are still talking about housing over retail, and that's people were strongly against that in the survey, but we're still talking about it. And I'm like, why are we talking about it? No one in the survey even wanted it, and that was like 350 people. So I just want to make sure that the survey is being followed, the land use plan is being followed, and you know, I guess that's it. Maybe you don't need homework.
There is going to be the opportunity for planning board members, you know, in the board to, you know, convey that to the other planning board members that are on the committee, and then take that, you know, like Michael and John, you're hearing, Melinda, you're hearing that, and, you know, you can take that to the committee next meeting. Like, if I'm going to be talking about housing types, residential over retail is going to be one of them, and there's 3 people listening to this conversation right now that can tell the other 6 people that that's something that the planning board doesn't, you know, want. And that's that's the kind of, you know.
It's not the planning board, it's something the town doesn't want.
That's something that's not supported by the land use plan. It was specifically, it was in the land use plan, it was stricken, and that's the kind of, you know, important context that members on the planning board can give to us. And then we can talk about it at the next meeting. We can, you know, Melinda can come back and say, hey, you know, hey Kelly, we made them not consider residential or retail because, you know, we took so long and decided that's not what we wanted to do.
I hope you don't have to tell me that, because I hope it's not even I hope it's not even a discussion, that you actually get some stuff done. So it just would suck to have to sit there and hash out stuff in a very valuable time that we've already hashed out and said no to. Like, just move on to the stuff that is actually really important that we need help with.
Well, and Rohit, to that notion, and then we may be getting grossly off topic here, but I think it would be beneficial then for you to send out an email and to remind people to come to the meeting so that we can all have a quorum, and to do their homework and be prepared to have the conversation. But I also think that asking this committee that's signed up for 8 meetings to be as prepared, and that's why I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna need to do both, because I'm just too nosy, I gotta know everything that's going on. But I think asking them to be as grossly prepared as we are as a planning board isn't gonna happen.
Melinda,
I could be wrong.
I was just going to say that the committee members already get those notifications. Everybody gets 2 emails from me reminding them of meetings, and they have already been told, they have already been requested to please review all information prior to meetings. Otherwise, conversations are not going to progress.
Melinda, I'm sensing personally the exact opposite of what you described. I'm sensing the planning board won't have the knowledge that the committee will have. I mean, if the committee is doing what this memo says, they're deliberating on design and implementation, density, uses, architecture, streetscape, traffic mitigation, business improvement, etc. I don't know what the planning board would be doing. And I'm just reacting to what I'm reading here on this piece of paper. It seems to me that this project is being pulled out of the planning board and going to be put in this committee, which will essentially report directly to village council. So the 3 members of the planning board who are on the committee will have input and be able to react and so on, but the rest of us won't.
I don't think it's reporting to the council.
Right, the planning board will still get the opportunity to review everything that happens to be in the purview of planning and zoning that happens in this committee. So, I think you might be afraid of something. I think you might be afraid of being left out of the process, and you really, really won't.
Yeah.
So does that mean they'll do it and then they'll give it to us and we'll do it?
I think it's more like, so you guys, like Kelly's mentioned before, you set the foundation and a very narrow range of topics that they will be discussing. Then within that range, they will, you know, vote on whichever types of things that they want to see, and then that will determine, you know, what goes in the district, and that will come through the planning board for your recommendation to council. Like, what if you support what the committee came up with.
So what I read that, again, troubled me is this phrase, as such, the planning board can assess the outcomes of the committee meetings and provide its own recommendations to council, but the planning board would not advise or direct the committee. I read that to mean that council would already be getting recommendations, and we could provide our own, but council's already getting recommendations.
No, sorry. Sorry.
What?
Sorry, I said sorry. I must have worded it in a way that wasn't clear. But planning board will have the opportunity to review everything that comes through committee, and then the council would determine what they want to do based on what the committee came up with and what the planning board thought of what the committee said.
Then I personally reword what's written here. I wouldn't say it as if the planning board can assess the outcomes. Planning board needs to be made aware of the committee results, and then provide, as it always does, its recommendations to council.
Yes, that's the way it's going to go.
So then I'm left with the question, though, is then why wouldn't we be able to direct the committee? Let's say we think they missed the boat on X, Y, or Z. why wouldn't we be able to send that back to the committee and say, hey, why don't you rethink X, Y, and Z and come back to us with another suggestion?
I think it's a very minor difference that planning board members can, after reviewing what happened in the committee, can then, discuss in the board, and then the planning board members on the committee can go to the next committee meeting and say, we talked about this as a planning board and it doesn't seem fitting in the land use plan or what the planning board had been talking about. And the minute difference between that and the planning board as a board giving direction to this committee the way that council gives direction to the planning board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, but then that implies that this committee can do what they want, and then if you have a conflict between the committee and the planning board,
then it would be up to the council. Yeah, it would be up to the council to determine where they side.
how does the council know that there's a conflict if they're not being reported to by the committee?
I think the way the meetings are set up, Paul, I think it's the heritage first, planning board second, then council during the month. Is that not correct, Rohit?
Yeah, but I don't think the council will review every month's, considerations of the committee and the planning board.
We'll review it, the planning board will review it before council.
Right. I don't think, like I said, I don't think council is going to be assessing the last committee meeting and then the last planning board assessment of the previous committee meeting at every council meeting. I only anticipate that happening maybe 2 weeks.
This committee has to report to somebody.
Right.
And you're telling me they're not reporting to council, but they're not reporting to us. So who are they reporting to?
Well, I think how are they not reporting to council? Council was the one that started the committee.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm
ultimately,
saying. They clearly are reporting to council. So to say that, we'll be able to talk it through and so on, it's sort of missing the point. They will already have a direct communication to council.
but not every month, only at the very end. And maybe once in the middle.
Okay. I'm obviously not going to change anything here. I don't get to do that. I'm expressing my views that I have some concerns about the way this thing is going to get set up. It doesn't seem to me to be an efficient process, and it does seem to me to be a way to not have the planning board engaged.
I'm not sure that that's the case, Paul, but you're welcome to go to the council and make your feelings known. As an individual.
Okay, I feel like be a record here. Bob's on the call here. I'm making.
Yeah, Bob's still on the meeting.
You know that I see some flaws in this structure, and I think we'll come to regret them.
I don't know. I think that in a month from now, once we do, like I said, one round of this committee meeting and the review, and then the next committee meeting, then we could probably reassess the structure and see if it makes sense or doesn't, if there's some way to improve it.
Hey, Rohit, when I was talking to Christina, I mentioned that I think it would be a good idea if we had the money to do a market research study on what businesses our area would actually sustain. Like, what is anyone because if the landowners are actually doing studies, that's great. I'd love for that information to be passed to us, but no one's doing it. It's like just a whim, like, hey, I want to open up a tattoo shop. I'm just kidding. But, if the market can sustain it, then great. But if no one knows and we're just approving whatever because somebody wants to do some sort of whatever, I know I'm not being very specific, but we need to know what the market will bear.
Well, Kelly,
So just punting willy-nilly.
Kelly, the council has hired the.
That's the next agenda item.
It's the next agenda item. Is
I don't think that involves what Kelly is talking about, though.
Let's be careful not to go too off topic, though.
Yeah, we're
Well, actually,
down
keep
in
in
the
mind,
weeds, I think.
it's not that they will assess all the different types of uses that exist and then determine whether, which ones are good, but they'll come to the committee meetings and the planning board meetings and input the uses that we give them into their models and see if they'll work, and then if that doesn't work, then they'll provide us with recommendations for alternatives. But yeah, it looks like they will be doing something with uses in their models.
But, you know, ultimately, you know, the strategic committee doesn't have anything to do with drafting ordinances and recommending ordinances and et cetera to the council.
They're there to make a strategic plan.
You know,
it's a single document.
But we, you know, we're the only ones who take a zoning ordinance to the council, or a landscaping ordinance, or a, you know, et cetera. You know, that committee doesn't have that kind of authority.
Yeah, that's another good point. The planning board is still, like I said, statutorily responsible for advising on all planning and zoning matters. So you'll get to see and review everything that comes out of the committee. It's just that, like I said, the planning board, it may just be, it'll be very important for the committee to knock out all the really, really minute details in a board that consists of a lot of different types of people, including several planning boards. But I think we're going around in circles here.
Yeah.
I really would like to just let this sit a month and see one cycle through, and then reassess how everyone feels about it.
I think so, you know, and
Let's table the same item for next month.
yeah. All right, you know, this doesn't require any motions or anything else. This is just a discussion.
You do want to table this for next month, to continue this discussion
Well,
next
I
month?
think it's, you know, warrants, you know, a continued discussion next month.
Correct. I mean, we're gonna listen. I think we'll be discussing it every month anyway.
Yeah, we're going to be, for the foreseeable future, we'll be discussing, you know, what the strategic planning committee is working on or discussing. Moving on. Update on the Development Finance Initiative contract for an economic feasibility study of the Marvin Heritage District. Leave it to government to have a long name.
Yeah, both they and we have long names. Marvin Heritage District doesn't really roll off the tongue, unfortunately, but it is a good name. So we did sign a contract with them. I included the contract just so you can see the scope, basically. They'll be looking at the density, the housing types, commercial types, uses, you know, et cetera, and some other population and other market factors. I did ask Melinda's question about whether they'll be assessing where the different customer bases come from, and they said that's not going to be included in their model. That's a much deeper like analysis that wouldn't be covered in the budget that we gave them. So so they'll just be looking at the amount of customers that the total uses might attract to this district. But in the end, they'll work with us. They'll be at a lot of our meetings, and then finally they'll give us a report that I'm gonna mute you guys in the conference because I'm hearing myself. So in the end, they'll give us a report that shows whether the density and the uses, et cetera, that are available and that are going to happen when we do this district, or you know, the concept is feasible, if it would be, you know, economically viable, and then if it's not, they'll provide alternative scenarios that could make this district viable.
Hey, Rohit, can I say
Yes.
What does programmatic mean in this scenario?
Yeah, that language just means that basic parameters of their model we'll be asking, we and them will be asking, you know, the property owners, the committee members, and the planning board what parameters of the model. They have a model and they take, certain inputs. Don't know what they are yet. We're going to have a conversation, I think in a couple of days actually, what those parameters actually are. But those are the programmatic inputs, like what goes into the model.
Okay, that makes sense. So could the inputs potentially include what the market will bear, or what businesses, commercial businesses could be successful in a neighborhood scale heritage district?
I'm not entirely sure how this conversation will go, because we just set up the meeting this week. But I do know that they're going to ask for uses, and I'm not sure if they'll propose uses or we will give them the uses. I think it's mostly going to be we giving them what uses we think will work. But at least we'll have some sort of security that we gave a list of uses that we think we would like to see to people who, really know the economics of, where they would work and if they would work here. And then if they don't, they'll give us their recommendations to what would work.
This should be interesting. I'm definitely interested to hear more, and once you guys start deciding what the inputs are, how it works out. But I definitely don't want a bunch of empty businesses along Newtown.
Right. Like, because we only allow a limited amount of uses and that's not enough, for example, is that what you're saying?
Well, also that, we approved a certain type of use, but no one in the town actually wanted it, needed it, used it, and went out of business. COVID's killing businesses right now. I don't think hopefully this isn't the future, but there's so many empty storefronts right now in different places. The shopping centers are not completely leased out. They weren't leased out before, and they're now probably, a quarter empty now. So this is just a rough time to be. Well, hopefully it won't happen in the next 6 months. So hopefully we will rebound by then. So.
I kind of disagree, Kelly. Before COVID, shopping centers were completely full. Rents were at an all-time high. It was not that way at all. I think that you'll see it, and businesses are not going to come here because we said, hey, we think you'll do well here. They're going to do their own research, and they're going to figure out whether it works or not. But and again, this is not going to happen in the next 6 months, next 12 months, next 2 years.
If it helps to know, in our Publix opening ceremony we had today, I think it was the mayor was asking about what's going in the other tenants, and they were saying they have a very huge interest in filling those parcels. They've got some restaurants, a dentist, an orthodontist, apparently they're different, and some salons. So they will have an idea, and in 6 months from now, we'll definitely have an idea of who filled in those tenant spaces, and I think there are like 10 or 15 of them. We'll know who filled those spaces, and that will give us an idea of what kind of commercial uses are viable in Marvin.
And the rents that are making it spin.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of interest. So
they're getting a lot of interest, and the rents are skyrocketing.
Well, good for them, because I'm seeing a bunch of empty storefronts everywhere else. So, and they're just, they might be full, but people are going out of business, and then the next one just comes in, and then they go out of business in 6 months. It's been, and I'm not talking COVID, I'm talking pre-COVID. It was like just this rotating, even in Blakeney, Stonecrest, all of them just have, restaurants failing and clothing stores failing, and it's just like the next generic thing going in. So I just don't want that to happen here.
Yeah.
All right.
Nobody does.
I think that updates us there.
I think this is a good location, that this is a very highly curated project, and this is a good location. There's a pretty wide range of things that we could do in this district. That's just my preliminary opinion.
All right. You get action items, Austin?
But yeah, we'll see what DFI comes up with. They'll be at one of the meetings of planning board between now and the contract end in January. So you'll get to see them at some point.
Anything else on that?
That's all I have for that. If anyone else has any other questions, I think that's the last item of the meeting too, isn't it?
That was
Yep. We're down
action
to
items.
action items.
All right, I don't have
Is there
many.
any action items actually?
Just a couple.
There were action items for Kathleen, but I don't think.
I'm not
Unless
reporting
I-
on those. Let's see. We'll put an update.
Austin, I have you muted because you were echoing when I was. I'm sorry.
He's trying to tell you what the action items were.
There you go. Okay, so there's not many. So we'll have an update for the Heritage District Committee on the next Planning Board agenda. Rohit, you will move forward with the zoning district per the board's consensus. And the discussion of the relationship between the board and the committee was tabled to the November meeting. That's all I got.
Okay, that's pretty good. I think I want to bring the conversation of form-based code to this board at the next meeting. It's going to be really hard to grasp at first, I guess, but the idea is that we create a zoning district that, and we can still stick to the conventional, uses with conditional zoning, but within that conditional uses, we, instead of restricting density and uses, we restrict the architecture and the spacing of buildings and the landscaping, and then the density kind of de facto figure itself out. And so I think between now and the next meeting, I would invite all of you to search form-based codes on Google, go to formbasedcodes.org and just look up what it is. It's very interesting. It's very kind of new organism. And if we end up doing the zoning district the old way, I wouldn't be too hurt about it, but it's just an interesting, new way of doing zoning. So,
We can discuss it next time. Form-based code is a regulation.
Right, it is a regulation, but it's a different way of doing zoning district.
Just so we, know that the first thing that's the biggest thing on form-based code. It is a regulation.
Right. And the people, so I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and so many people have been saying, oh, this looks like a good opportunity for you to do a form-based code. But in that, we would a little bit abandon the idea of prescribing a specific density, like floor area ratio, in exchange for choosing where the buildings are instead of, where the buildings are and how far spaced they are. Anyway, this is action items, so I really shouldn't go too much in deep depth about it, other than to say that, in advance, I would like to invite you all to look up form-based codes, because that would be a very important discussion for this board to have, because a lot of people have said, this is a good district candidate for a form-based code.
Okay, board member comments. Start at the top of my screen. Paul?
No, just thanks again, everybody.
Okay. Kelly? Michael?
Thanks everyone for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Melinda?
Good to see everybody.
I'll ask Bob if he has any comments as our liaison.
No, it was a good meeting. There's a lot that's going on regarding, retail. You all had the discussion with 7-Eleven and what to do there is important. It's interesting you talked about the shopping centers. I was looking at the design of Publix and the design of the storefronts that are now empty. So I was kind of taking a view of what might happen in design in the Heritage District. So, Rohit, what did you think of the kind of, and I was looking at, again, the design of the 7-Eleven. What did you think of that? Do you think that theme would carry over to the Heritage District, or would we be more historical than that? Just curious.
I looked at the storefront, and I think it's actually beautiful. They did a really good job picking the stone facades and some of the farm door kind of things. But there's very much going to be an important characteristic of this district where we actually do look at the buildings that exist currently, and we look at their setbacks and we look at their architecture and use that to determine what the infill building should look like. So there is a here and there. There's a lot of do's to learn from Marvin Gardens, but there's also things we do need to do differently with this.
Good. Yeah, just curious. But
I think we want timeless design. I think a lot of times when you start picking stones, it could be out of date in 10 years, but the farmhouse look, I mean, it's been here for 200 years already, and it still looks nice. So
that's sort of my feeling, and we're getting.
I've muted you guys in the conference room again, just because I don't know, it was echoing again.
Okay, well.
Okay, so let's unmute John.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting, in closing comments, we're getting a little, off subject, but I'd say that what's the Heritage District going to look like? I'd suggest that people look around at what's here already. The church, the old house, churches, old houses, the general store, the Roan House, which used to be here, etc. And go to the name Heritage District instead of trying to come up with something new. But that's just my personal opinion. All right, that's my comments. I'd entertain a motion that we close this meeting. I think that's what we do, don't we?
9:24, adjourn, yep.
Adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn.
All right. I'll second. All in favor? See you next month. And
Adjourn.
see several of you sooner.